Welcome to this explainer. Before we jump in, let's just take a nice, gentle, deep breath together. Today, we're exploring something so profoundly shared among midlife women. We're talking about those sudden shifts, the unspoken questions, and ultimately, the path forward. And the whole thing really kicks off with one simple but heavy thought. So, who actually am I? Let's get right into it. Think about that unexpected moment in your life when everything just kind of shifts. Maybe the kids need you a little less, or let's be honest, a lot less. Or maybe your relationship has settled into this comfortable but perhaps slightly distant rhythm. Even the career that used to fiercely define your waking hours might suddenly feel like it belongs to an entirely different person. And then it happens. Life goes quiet. But it's a very specific kind of quiet, isn't it? It's not just the absence of noise in the house, it's the absence of constant, urgent demand. And past all those myriad of roles you play, past the endless things you're needed for every single day, this new feeling starts to bubble up. Right there, in that sudden, unmapped quiet, something thrilling, but also completely terrifying, begins to whisper to you.
And that whisper forms this exact question. Who actually am I? Let's just pause for a second and really let that sink in. I'm not asking who you are to other people. I don't mean your job title or your role in your family or what you're the go-to person for in a crisis. I mean, who are you underneath all of that? When you strip away every single responsibility and title, who is left standing there?
Now, if just hearing that question makes your heart beat a little faster, look at the sheer scale of what we're actually talking about here. According to a 2025 study in the Journal of Midlife Health, which looked at data from Talkspace, over 40% of women aged 35 to 55 report experiencing midlife crisis symptoms. So no, you aren't making this up. It is absolutely not just in your head. This shift is a defining, shared experience for nearly half of all midlife women. You are actually part of this massive, silent collective going through the exact same internal earthquake.
But the research digs a bit deeper. And the really crucial takeaway is this. These symptoms don't hit everyone with the exact same intensity. The data actually shows that these feelings strike the absolute hardest and feel the most overwhelming for those who feel the least sense of personal fulfillment in their own lives. Basically, if you've been running on empty, pouring absolutely everything into the external world while kind of starving your internal world, this transition, it's going to demand your attention a whole lot more loudly.
And it's not just psychological, it's deeply physical too. Take a look at these findings from Zipto. They highlight that 27%, that's more than 1 in 4 women, report that menopause and midlife changes significantly affect their fundamental sense of identity. That is absolutely vital to understand. Your biology and your psychology are shifting at the exact same time. To put that into perspective, this number proves unequivocally that you're not navigating this profound internal shift alone, even if it feels incredibly isolating when you're just standing there in the middle of your kitchen at the end of a long day. So why exactly is this happening right now? Well, think about what most women in midlife share. You've likely spent literally decades living in service of something or someone else. Your kids, your partner, your career, aging parents, the list goes on. You became the devoted mom, the reliable one, the peacekeeper, the good daughter. You basically became the woman who held the whole shebang together so that everyone else had the luxury of falling apart safely. And let's be real here, these weren't just small part-time roles. Over time, they became your entire identity. And we really do have to honor them because for a really long time, those identities worked. They kept your world spinning.
But then, midlife arrives. And this is exactly where the friction happens. On one side, you have the hormonal and psychological upheaval of perimenopause and menopause, quietly but firmly dismantling the very structures that held all those old identities in place. The energy you used to have to constantly nurture others, it starts to wane. Your biological drive shifts. And when those internal structures start to dissolve, what's left behind can feel terrifyingly like nothing. Or it can feel like absolutely everything, depending entirely on how you learn to look at it.
I actually want to give a concrete name to that really uncomfortable space you might be standing in right now. It's called the identity gap. It's the in-between. It's this incredibly disorienting liminal space where your old incarnations, the roles we just talked about, they just don't quite fit anymore. But your new self, she hasn't fully arrived to introduce herself yet. It's right here in this gap where the really heavy difficulty lives. It's the accumulating weight of simply not knowing who you are anymore. And let me tell you, the identity gap has some very real, very visceral symptoms. If any of these make you nod along, please know I see you. There's that 3 a.m. wakefulness where your brain just won't shut off.
or that low-grade flatness. It isn't exactly clinical sadness, but it sure isn't joy either. Then there's this haunting sense of being completely invisible, in rooms, in your relationships, sometimes literally in your own life. And often there's a really strange, quiet grief for the person you thought you'd be by this age. These are heavy, deeply uncomfortable feelings to carry around.
But I really want you to hear me say this as clearly and calmly as possible. These are not signs of failure. You haven't done anything wrong. They are simply signs of transition. And transition, by its very definition, requires you to leave something behind before you can move towards something new. It's kind of like you're molting. You're shedding a skin that's just gotten way too small for you now.
So, what does navigating this transition actually look like in everyday life? Well, this is what we call the work of midlife. First off, it requires genuine honesty. And no, I don't mean the perfectly performed honesty of a journaling prompt on a wellness app. I mean a gritty, real reckoning with which parts of your identity were truly yours and which parts you just absorbed from society's expectations. Second, you have to separate who you are from what you've done. Your worth is not your output. And third, it's about asking yourself not just what you want to do next, but what kind of woman you actually want to be.
Now, this work isn't small, and it absolutely doesn't have a quick overnight fix, but there is a massive reward for those who choose to sit gently in the discomfort of this identity gap, rather than just rushing to fill it with busyness or distractions. And that reward? It's clarity. It isn't necessarily having absolute certainty about every single thing in your future. Instead, it's a genuine, beautifully grounded sense of self that literally doesn't depend on anyone else in the world to validate it. Just imagine how peaceful that would feel. And honestly, this is exactly why having a map for this territory is so essential. Enter Second Bloom. This is a structured system derived from these exact concepts, and it's designed specifically for this quiet, profound moment in a woman's life. I want to be clear, it isn't designed to fix you because you aren't broken. It's a system to help you move through the identity gap with intention, helping you gently peel back the layers to uncover that profound clarity that's already inside you, just waiting to be recognized.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. I really want to leave you with this one question. What will you discover when you finally sit in the gap? Let that linger in the quiet for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack these incredible insights today. Please take your time with this, be kind to yourself in the transition, and I genuinely hope this gives you the courage to embrace your own second bloom. Take care.